Ready for a deep dive that'll really make you think about marketing differently. We're about to tackle some of those marketing myths we all hear, those assumptions that just don't quite hold up.
And the best part is, we're not just throwing opinions around. We've got data to back it all up, thanks to marketing rebel Byron Sharp and his book, How Brands Grow.
Yeah, no marketing fairy tales today, just real evidence and insights, which I have to say is refreshing.
It definitely challenges a lot of the traditional thinking.
Right.
Get ready to rethink how you view things like loyalty, how to stand out in the market, and how customers actually decide what to buy.
One thing I've always been a little skeptical about is this whole brand loyalty above all else idea. Like, do those loyalty programs really make a difference?
Well, Sharp's got something to say about that. He calls it the double jeopardy law. And what it boils down to is that bigger brands, they tend to have more loyal customers, but not because they've found some magical formula.
What do you mean?
It's simpler than you might think. They have more loyal customers because they just have more customers, period. More customers means more people making repeat purchases.
So it's not that those loyal customers are choosing that brand out of some diehard devotion. It's more about them just being familiar with it.
Exactly. It's like a self-fulfilling thing. And Sharp uses a great example with shampoo. He compares Head & Shoulders, a huge brand, with a smaller one called Vocine.
I've heard of Vu's scene.
You'd think Head & Shoulders would have these incredible loyalty numbers, right?
Right, I mean, everyone uses it, or so it seems.
But here's the thing. Their customer loyalty, surprisingly close to Vocine's. And that's despite the difference in how much they sell.
Wait, so someone who buys Head & Shoulders isn't that much more likely to buy it again than someone who buys Vocine?
That's what Sharp found. This really challenges that idea that if we just pour all our effort into making a small group of superfans, we'll somehow see explosive growth.
So instead of trying to make every customer a brand evangelist, maybe the focus should be on just getting your product in front of more people, even those who aren't your, what do they call it, your ideal customer.
Now you're thinking like Byron Sharp, reaching those light buyers, the ones who maybe pick your brand sometimes, and even the people who haven't bought anything in your category yet. That could be a much stronger path to growth.
It's a whole different way of looking at things. It's like, instead of fighting for a bigger slice of the pie, maybe we need to bake a bigger pie altogether.
Absolutely. But this brings up another big question. If we're not hyper-focused on loyalty, what about that other marketing mantra, the differentiate or die idea?
Yeah. It feels like every marketing guru is screaming at us to find that one thing that makes us special, be the purple cow. Honestly, it's exhausting.
And according to Sharp, often misguided. His research shows that most brands within a given category, they actually sell to really similar groups of people, even if their branding seems totally different.
Hold on. Are you telling me that someone who buys, say, a big, rugged pickup truck isn't that different from someone who buys a sleek sports car?
You might be surprised. Sharp dove into this. He looked at demographics, values, lifestyle, even what newspapers people read, and the overlap between car buyers across brands was huge. And it's not just cars. He found this pattern across tons of categories.
Wow. So even when brands try to present themselves as something totally unique, their customers are more alike than not. Makes you wonder if we've been oversold on this whole being radically different thing.
Wow.
So if brands aren't really all that different underneath it all, what's the point of all this marketing stuff?
Yeah.
If a Coke drinker is basically the same as a Pepsi drinker, why bother with all the jingles and ad campaigns?
That's where distinctiveness comes into play. And it's not about being deeply different, like we've been talking about. It's actually a lot simpler than that.
All right, you've got my attention. What exactly are we talking about with this distinctiveness thing?
Picture some brands that just pop into your head. What are you seeing?
Okay, well, the Apple logo, that Nike swoosh, those are pretty hard to miss.
Exactly. It's not that those brands have some totally unique features or values. It's that they're instantly recognizable. Think about Tiffany's that blue box. You see that color and you know exactly what it is, even without a logo in sight.
Yeah, that's a great point. They've made a color, which anyone can use, into something that just screams their brand. It's like a shortcut right to them.
Exactly, but there's a catch. Even the most distinctive branding, it can still get drowned out in all the noise out there.
Yeah.
We are flooded with marketing messages every single day.
Seriously. It's like my brain is on marketing overload half the time.
And that's where this idea of mental availability comes in. It's about being the brand that's top of mind, the one that pops up when a customer realizes they need something.
So kind of like that top-of-mind awareness thing you always hear marketers talking about, being the first one people think of in your category.
That's it. But, and this might surprise you, Sharp's research says that to really make that happen, You need to be reaching way beyond just your loyal customers. You got to reach those late buyers, the ones who buy every now and then, and even those who've never bought from you at all.
Now that just feels wrong. Why waste time on people who barely buy from you or, like you said, have never even tried your product? Shouldn't you be focusing on those who are already fans of the brand?
It seems counterintuitive, I know. But remember how we talked about how few households buy the majority of Coke or Pepsi?
Right, most of their customers only buy from them a few times a year.
And that's the point. If you want to really grow, you can't just bank on those diehards. You've got to get those occasional buyers to pick you one or two more times a year.
And what about the ones who haven't bought anything in the category yet? It's not like they're thinking about your brand at all.
And that's exactly why they're so important. They're not buying from anyone yet. If you can reach them, you're opening up a huge market.
So mental availability is like you want to be the first one that comes to mind when they realize they have that need.
I like it. Sharp's argument is that this is where marketing should be focusing its energy, making those mental connections, those shortcuts, so your brand is the obvious choice. It's less about trying to convince everyone with these big arguments.
And more about just being there, being the one that's easy to remember, easy to buy when that urge to buy something hits.
Now you're getting it. And Sharp doesn't just leave us with these busted myths. He gives us a way to use these ideas with his 7 rules for growth. And these aren't just made-up ideas, they're based on actual evidence.
Okay, hit me with these 7 rules. Let's revolutionize my marketing plan.
Number 1 is all about reach. But it's not just about getting to your target market. Sharp's saying you need to reach everyone in your category.
Everyone, even the people who wouldn't normally be a good fit for the brand.
Especially them. Don't forget, those late buyers and non-buyers, they're where the real growth potential is. You've got to be willing to think bigger and not be afraid to reach a wider audience.
Got it. So we need to broaden our horizons and get in front of as many people as possible. But how do you actually do that? It's not like we can just shout about our product on every street corner.
You need a good mix of getting your product out there physically and some smart marketing to go with it. Ask yourself, is it easy to find your product? Can people easily buy it? Is your marketing actually reaching a diverse group of people through the right channels?
So being in the right place at the right time. Not just on store shelves, but in people's minds when they're deciding what to buy. But you're also up against a ton of other brands that want that same attention. So rule number 2 has to be about standing out from that crowd.
I got it. Rule number 2 is simple. Be easy to buy. Sounds basic, but it's crucial. You've got to get rid of any hurdles, anything that gets in the way of a customer and your product.
Basically, make it a no-drainer for people to pick you over someone else.
Exactly. That means your pricing is clear and competitive, your website's easy to use, buying online is a breeze, and people can actually find your product when they want it.
Don't make me jump through hoops just to give you my money. And please, no 10-page forms to fill out online.
I'm with you there. All that does is create roadblocks, and roadblocks mean lost sales.
Okay, I'm following you so far.
Okay.
Rule number 3 has to be about standing out in the sea of marketing noise out there. It can be overwhelming.
Exactly. Rule number 3 is all about being distinctive, but not in the way you might think. Sharp's really insistent that your brand needs to be immediately recognizable, but it's not just about a catchy logo or a cool slogan.
So we're back to distinctiveness. What are some examples of brands that are doing this well? Give me some real-world inspiration.
Look at Oatly, for example. They've really shaken up those milk alternatives. And it's not just that they've got a good product, it's how they look too. Their packaging is bold, it's fun, and it's different from everything else on the shelf. On top of that, their marketing is funny, kind of edgy, and they're not afraid to challenge how things are usually done.
That's a perfect example. They're willing to be different, even a little weird, and that's what helps people remember them.
Exactly. But remember, being distinctive isn't a one-and-done thing. You've got to keep reinforcing what makes your brand stand out.
Which leads us to rule number 4. It's not enough to just make a big splash with your marketing and then disappear for a year. You've got to stay visible and keep reminding people why you're great.
You read my mind. Rule number 4 is all about that. Refresh memory structures. Consistent branding across everything you do, that's the key to building that crucial mental availability we were talking about. It's like taking care of a garden. You've got to keep watering those mental links you're building.
Repetition, but not the boring kind. Rule number 5 has got to be about making sure that consistent branding is something people will actually remember.
Right. Again, rule number 5, create distinctive assets, goes hand in hand with rule number 3. You need those visual and verbal cues that make you instantly recognizable.
Think about Nike's swoosh. The golden arches from McDonald's. Even that Intel jingle you can't get out of your head.
Those things are like mental shortcuts. They see the swoosh, they think Nike, and all those good feelings they have about Nike, they come rushing back.
Okay, so we're reaching everyone, we're easy to buy, and we're getting noticed with those distinctive assets and consistent branding. What's next? Rule number 6 has to be about keeping things fresh, right? Because even the best branding can get old if you don't change things up.
You got it. Rule number 6 is all about balance. Be consistent, but fresh. It's a balancing act. You've got to keep that core brand identity, the stuff that makes you unique, but you've also got to be willing to experiment to keep your message current.
So we don't need a complete makeover every few months, but we don't want to be predictable either. How do you walk that line?
Think about it like telling the same story, but you're telling it in new, interesting ways. Use humor or do something surprising. Just find ways to keep people engaged.
I am loving these rules. They're actually useful, you know? All right, bring on rule number 7, the grand finale.
Rule number 7 is about staying sharp. Don't give people reasons not to buy.
Okay, I think I can handle that one. So no crazy high prices, quality has to be there, and definitely no issues getting the product to people when they want it.
That's it. Make sure your price is right, your product delivers what you promise, and people can find it where they shop. It's not just about giving people reasons to choose you. It's also about taking away those reasons they might choose someone else.
Make it easy. Make it the obvious choice. This is fantastic. It's like a whole new playbook for marketing.
It is, and it reminds us that good marketing isn't about tricking customers or making them think they need something they don't.
It's about being there, being dependable, being the obvious choice when someone's ready to buy.
Exactly. It's about that trust and that familiarity that builds up over time. So when someone needs what you're selling, you're the first one they think of.
You know, thinking about the brands I buy all the time, I bet I could see those 7 rules in action without even realizing it. They're everywhere.
They are. And these principles work whether you're just starting out or you're a huge company.
Well, there you have it. Byron Sharp's 7 rules for growth. It's a totally different way of thinking about marketing, but it's based on the real world and focused on those genuine, long-term relationships with your customers.
We've covered a ton in this deep dive, but we're not quite finished yet. There's one more little nugget we need to explore.
Oh, don't leave me hanging. I'm ready for more Sharp wisdom. What else is there? Okay, so we've busted those marketing myths. We've got Sharp's 7 rules for growth. What's this final piece of the puzzle you mentioned?
Well, we can't finish this deep dive without one last thought-provoking idea, right? So we've established that growth is about reaching more people, being easy to buy, and building that mental availability. But if that's true, how much of this whole marketing game is really about persuasion?
Whoa, now that's a question. Are you saying all those clever ads, those emotional appeals, trying to make people believe your brand is the yes? Maybe that's not as important as we've always thought.
It's not that they're pointless, but maybe, just maybe, we've given them too much credit. Think about it. If people are mainly deciding based on what pops into their head first, that mental availability, then the decision might already be made before we even try to persuade them.
So it's less about making people fall in love with your brand and more about making sure you're the first thing they think of.
Exactly. Of course, persuasion still plays a part. Your product has to be good, and those positive feelings people have help. But the real driver, the thing that really fuels growth, might just be that less exciting but super powerful idea. Being the brand everyone remembers.
There's a whole different way of thinking about things. Instead of trying to win hearts and minds, it's about winning that split second when someone needs something.
A total shift in perspective, but one that could mean our marketing is not just more effective, but maybe even, dare I say, more honest.
How so?
Because it's less about trying to trick people with these fancy psychological tactics and more about being upfront, being dependable, being the clear solution when someone's ready to buy.
Makes sense. It's a more customer-focused approach, if you think about it. You're acknowledging how they actually make decisions, even if they don't realize it.
Right. And now I've got a challenge for you and everyone listening. Next time you're about to buy something, think about why you chose that particular brand. Was it a deep emotional connection? Did you carefully compare all the features? Or was it just the one that was easiest to get, the one you thought of first?
You know, I'm already thinking back to my last trip to the store. Were those Sharp's rules secretly at work? This has been eye-opening.
That's what we like to hear. A good deep dive should challenge the way we see things, make us think differently.
Absolutely. And on that note, we've reached the end of our deep dive into the world of Byron Sharp and how brands grow. We've challenged some assumptions, explored some new ideas. hopefully given everyone listening a lot to think about.
So remember, keep questioning those marketing myths. Don't be afraid to try new things and keep those memory structures strong.
And with that, we'll be back next time with another deep dive to stretch those marketing muscles. Until then, happy marketing, everyone.